the question. So we need to start on our number line, if you want, at -3 for this first one. So that's the starting point of here. We were discussing what a subtraction of a debt means, or subtraction of a negative number. Remember, this is a subtraction, and this is a negative number. So you subtract a negative number. So a subtraction of a debt we discussed yesterday was really just adding it, wasn't it? So minus minus became a plus. So we need to add 2. We subtract that debt. If you owe $3, but 2 of those dollars were taken away from you, you would owe only $1. 2 of those dollars debt were taken away. So to add, we would go this way, and we'd end up at -1. Is the first one. This second one is, we started just +2. Now this is not -3, this is actually +3. This can be written a different way. It can be written 2 minus +3. But we usually don't write it like that. We don't put a plus with the 2 either. We don't go like this. Oh, it's a +2 minus a +3. We just go, it's 2 take away 3. So there's no need to change it and do anything fancy. It's just 2 take away 3. So we start here at 2, and then we subtract 3. So we go this way. And we end up also at -1. Next one, we have a starting point of 7. So we're at 7 here. We need to add a -3. So adding negatives, if someone told you, I have $7, you have $7, but I'm going to add some -3 to it, you definitely wouldn't have $10. If you have $7 and someone said, I'm going to add -3 to you, that means you're going to take away, that adding a debt to your dollars is going to take away some from you. So an adding of a negative is actually you subtract the amount. So 7 take away 3, which I think we know is 4. The next one, we're starting with nothing. And we subtract a -2. So that's a double negative, the same as this one. The double negative is a positive. 2, +2. Not -2. Double negatives in a row like that, positive. The next one, we start at -8. So we're all the way back here at -8. Remember, this is our starting point. And I add more debt to it. I add more negatives to it. If I add 1 more negative, I'm at -9. But I'm adding 2 more negatives, so I'm at -10. So minus plus minus in a row like that becomes a minus. On the last one, I start at -2 here. And I subtract 4. Just subtract 4. So we go this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. We end up -6. So remember, if we're subtracting, we're moving to the left. If we're adding, we're moving to the right. Quick show of hands if you got 6, 5, 4, 3. Very good. Okay. So this leads us nicely if we were continuing to subtract. So if we'd something like -2, minus a 2, minus another 2, minus another 2, what will answer would that give? -2, minus another 2, minus another 2, minus another 2. -8? -6, -8? Where do we start? We start at -2 here. This is our starting point. -8, and we subtract 2. We subtract another 2, and we subtract another 2. End up at -8. Such a repeated thing can be shortened down, can't it? How do we shorten repeated stuff like this? How many -2s do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 -2s. Yeah? -8. Sweet. What happens if I have -4 -2s? Kiki? Turns to positive? Why? Well, yeah, you can prove it pretty simply. This answer we just did. We just did 4 -2s, and it was -8. So 4 -2s here is -8, and there's a minus in front of it. There's a minus in front of it. So we have -8, which came up negative. What did we end up doing? Plus. So it's just +8. So I'm going to set some rules here that you're going to write down. The rule here, that's a positive number. And if I multiply it by a negative number, what's my answer? Negative. Now the multiplication itself is the same. 4 times 2 is 8. So we don't need to worry about the multiplication. We just need to worry about the sign. Positive times negative gives a negative. And then I had a negative number multiplied by a negative number. And my answer was positive. We did a little proof.
What if it's negative times positive?
Yeah, good question. So you have something like negative 5 times positive 3. Yeah? All right. Well, what's 5 times 3? 15. And then we have this negative sign in front of it. So it can only be negative 15. It couldn't be positive, so it's negative 15. So you can write that as well if you want. A negative times a positive is also a negative. Now I'm using the shortened word instead of the symbol, just because it gets a bit messy if you try and put in all the symbols. But a positive number times a negative number gives a negative. So if the signs are different, you may notice that you get a negative. One's positive, one's negative. Okay. Now there's one operation we haven't looked at. Yeah? No? You have a question here? Yeah?
Yeah, I was going to say
Positive. All right, positive, positive.
Yeah, but that's
You're dead right. Positive, positive is just what you've been doing all your life. Times tables, you just get a positive answer. You've never spoken in negatives probably until this week, maybe. Okay, what's the operation? So we've done adding, we've done subtracting, we've done multiplying, division. Our old friend division. So what rule is it for division? So what happens if we've 8 divided by negative 2? So that can be written like that, or it can be written 8 with the division sign, negative 2. That's the same thing. Okay, we have some answers from around the room. Negative 4. Okay, how do you know it's negative 4?
Because it was the same as the multiplication.
Because division is the opposite operation to multiplication, has to work in opposition. So let's just say instead of a question mark, I put a box here. And then I rearrange this one, because the same question can be answered this way. Yeah? So I put 4 here, would that answer be, that's a negative? It has to be negative. It has to be a negative to make the positive answer. So this has to be negative 4, which means the answer to this one is negative 4. Because division is the exact, I just did the opposite operation. Now, that was a positive, and I divided by a negative, and what was my answer? Negative. So when I had a positive multiplying, and I multiplied by a negative, I got a negative, and the same works for division. So I can just put a division there as well. It works for multiplication and division, because they are pretty much the same operation, just done in reverse. Well, that's that one solved. What's negative divided by a negative? So if I have negative 8, it should be positive, right? So we're expecting this number to be positive. So the opposite should work with multiplication. 8 should be negative 2, and I'm going to put a box here, times this box. So what's the only number this could be?
4.
It has to be 4. If it was negative 4, well, I've already done that one. That gives a positive answer. And I need a negative answer. So it has to be, it has to be positive 4. I messed up. It has to be positive 4.
So negative times
Negative divided by a negative. That's this answer. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. And it works for this as well. And a negative divided by, it is also the same. So the rules for multiplication and division are conveniently the same.